I invested $25,000 in a family trip to the Caribbean, imagining priceless moments with my family. But at the gate, my son announced, "I didn't get you a ticket. You should just go home." They had schemed to abandon me like an inconvenience from the very beginning. 4 weeks later, they got back, their jaws dropping when they saw a man in a crisp suit standing with me, because this man was poised to dismantle their entire world. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Dad, I've got some difficult news. David's words were a sharp sting in the terminal's chaos. I halted, my carry-on bumping against my ankle, the Caribbean air check-in desk looming ahead, swarming with families wrestling oversized bags and tropical-themed neck pillows. "What kind of difficult news?" I inquired, although a knot was already forming in my stomach from his tone. He avoided my gaze, looking instead at the flight information display, his hands buried in his pockets. "I didn't get your ticket." The words felt suspended in the air. All around us, travelers hurried by with boarding passes in hand, their cheerful talk of sandy beaches and snorkeling feeling like a cruel joke. "You forgot?" My voice was weaker than I intended. "David, we've been arranging this getaway for 3 months. I'm aware. He finally glanced at me, but it was fleeting. There was just so much to arrange, and work has been insane. I provided you with $25,000. The figure felt heavy on my lips. "For every one of us, the entire family." "Correct. And we're so grateful, Dad. Honestly." David checked his phone, then looked toward the security gates. "But the situation is, the flight is about to board, and I was already heading for the check-in desk, pulling my bag behind me. A wheel snagged on the floor, yanking my arm, but I kept going. This was something that could be fixed. It had to be. "Excuse me," I said to the agent behind the counter. Her uniform was a bright turquoise, her smile professional. "I need to see what flights you have to Nassau today." She typed on her keyboard. "Of course, sir. What's the name for the booking?" "Arthur Miller, but there seems to be a problem with my ticket." More typing. A short delay. Her smile wavered a little. "I'm not finding any booking under that name, sir." "Are you certain it was booked through Caribbean Air?" My chest felt tight. It must be in there, my family. I glanced back to find David, but he had drifted away, now pacing anxiously near the TSA checkpoint. "Let me do a wider search," the agent said. "What dates were you planning to travel?" "Today, right this minute. My son and his family should have their tickets already." She nodded, her fingers dancing across the keys, the screen's glow reflected in her glasses. "I am seeing a booking for David Miller. A party of 4 leaving at 3:30, but there is no Arthur Miller on that reservation." The terminal seemed to spin. "That can't be right." "Please check again." "I've looked twice, sir. Shall I see what's available on standby?" A spark of hope. "Yes, whatever you have." "I'm very sorry, but we are fully booked today. There's a big conference in Nassau." "What about tomorrow?" "First class." "I'll cover any cost." David materialized beside me, his hand grabbing my arm. "Dad, we need to have a word." I shrugged him off. "Not right now. We're getting this sorted." "No, we aren't." His grasp tightened, pulling me away from the desk. "This is not going to happen." The agent was watching us with rising unease. Other travelers were starting to stare. A young boy pointed at my suitcase, which had fallen over when David grabbed me. "What do you mean it's not going to happen?" I righted my bag, my hands trembling. "There must be another carrier, another flight." "Dad, you need to listen." David's voice had a harshness I'd never heard. "This vacation is leaving now. My family is already at the gate, so we find another way for me to get there." No, the word was flat, decisive. "We don't." The departure screen changed, showing new flight information. Gate numbers updated. The 3:30 Caribbean flight now flashed final boarding call in bright red. "David, you're frightening me." "What is happening?" He checked his phone again, this time with more impatience. "What's happening?" "Is that you have to go home, Dad?" "We'll figure out the vacation." "Figure it out?" My voice was strained. "I paid for all of it. The resort, the rental car, the excursions for the kids, and we're thankful for that. But standing here arguing is not solving anything." The terminal's air conditioning hummed, but I felt flushed and dizzy. None of it made sense. 3 months of planning, $25,000, family dinners where we dreamed about coral reefs and sunset cruises, and now David was treating me like a nuisance. "Just go home," he said again, already moving toward security. "We'll phone you from the resort." That's when I saw it in his expression. Not anxiety over a missing ticket. Not remorse for a mistake. Relief. David turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with my suitcase in the middle of the terminal, watching my son vanish into the crowd as if he'd been rehearsing this for weeks. The Caribbean air desk felt like the only stable thing in a dizzying world. I went back to the same agent, who knew me instantly. "Sir, did you manage to resolve things with your family? Actually, I need you to look up something for me." My voice was firmer than I felt. "That booking under David Miller. When was it created?" She paused, looking toward the security line where David had disappeared. I'm not really supposed to disclose booking information, but her fingers moved on the keyboard. "It says here it was booked 6 weeks ago. Party of 4. 2 adults, 2 children. 6 weeks ago, not 3 months ago when we first talked about the trip. Not last week when David said he was confirming everything. 6 weeks ago when he had already determined I was not coming and no adjustments were made to add another traveler. No, sir, the booking has been the same since it was first made." My knees felt weak. I gripped the counter, the cool metal a stark contrast to my clammy hands. "What about other carriers? Anything to Nassau today, tomorrow, this week?" She searched, her face growing more concerned with every query. "I'm sorry. It's peak season because of the conference. Delta has a wait list of 52 people. American Airlines is completely sold out until next Wednesday." Next Wednesday! The words were a bitter pill. The trip would be half over by then. "There is one possibility," she said softly. "Spirit Airlines has a red-eye tonight with 2 connections. It gets you there Thursday afternoon, but it's very expensive for a last-minute booking." "How expensive?" $2,200. I started to reach for my wallet, but then I stopped. In the distance, I could see the gate for the Caribbean flight. David would be there, probably texting Clara, telling her the problem me had been handled. "Sir," the agent's voice seemed distant. He knew I said more to myself than to her. He knew the whole time. "I'm so sorry." I looked at her compassionate face, her real concern for a confused old man, and I suddenly felt a wave of embarrassment. This wasn't her issue. This was a family matter, the type of ugly secret that should be kept hidden. "The flight?" I asked. "Is it still boarding?" "Final call was 15 minutes ago. They're likely closing the doors as we speak." As if on cue, an announcement came over the PA system. "Caribbean Air Flight 812 to Nassau is now closed for boarding. All passengers should be on board." I looked toward the gate. Even from this distance, I could see the last few travelers hurrying down the jet bridge. Kids in tow, bags bouncing, families on their way to paradise together. My phone vibrated. A text from David. "Sorry, Dad, we'll call from the resort. Take care, take care." As if I were a responsibility he had finally managed to offload. The agent cleared her throat. "About that Spirit flight, sir. Would you like me to reserve it for you?" I stared at my phone. No explanation, no true apology, just a curt dismissal after taking $25,000 in 3 months of my anticipation. "No," I said, putting the phone back in my pocket. "No, I don't think I will." "Are you certain?" "I can hold it for 10 minutes. "I'm certain." Because at that moment, standing in that terminal filled with the scent of coffee and the sound of wheeled luggage, I understood something critical. This wasn't about a forgotten ticket or a planning error, or even David's selfishness. This was about how they saw me, how they thought they could treat me like a simpleton. The departure board updated. Caribbean Flight 812 now read departed in bold black text. David and his family were in the air, likely sipping complimentary drinks, congratulating each other on a well-earned vacation. I picked up my suitcase and headed for the exit. But I wasn't beaten. Not any longer. Every step I took away from that gate brought more clarity. They had made an assumption about Arthur Miller. They assumed I would just go home, maybe grumble a bit, but in the end accept being cast aside. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. The automatic doors hissed open, and I walked out into the afternoon sun, already formulating my response. Behind me, the terminal was alive with people heading to their destinations. I was heading to mine as well. It just wasn't the one they had in mind. The taxi queue was longer than I'd hoped, but I didn't mind the wait. It gave me time to process, to let the facts settle, like silt in murky water. "Where to?" the driver asked as I put my suitcase in the trunk. He was middle-aged and looked weary, likely from navigating airport traffic all day. "Portland, Laurelhurst neighborhood." I got into the back, still holding my phone, where David's dismissive text message was illuminated. As we left SeaTac, I looked out at the familiar scenery of the Puget Sound region. The landscape spread out before us, covered in homes where other families were likely having dinner, talking about their day, making plans, not scheming on how to cut out their own father. "Tough day?" the driver asked, looking at me in the rearview mirror. "Getting tougher." I wasn't one to chat with strangers, but the anonymity of the cab made it feel safe. "Ever had your family betray you?" He laughed, a humorless sound. "Buddy, I've got ex-wives who've been plotting my demise for decades. Family are the ones who know exactly how to twist the knife." Twist the knife? That's precisely how it felt. A sharp, calculated blow aimed at something crucial. As we passed through Renton, I started replaying conversations from the last few months. March, when I first proposed doing something special for the grandkids. David's instant excitement. "Dad, that's a fantastic idea. Let me handle everything." April, when we'd gathered at Clara's dining table, reviewing resort brochures, Helen almost vibrating with excitement. "Oh, Arthur, this is so kind of you." George nodding along, more reserved than usual, but seemingly supportive. But now, in retrospect, I could see the clues, the way David had been so insistent on managing all the reservations himself. Clara's remark that I might be more relaxed in a separate hotel in case the kids were too loud. Helen's comment about how older people sometimes have different vacation preferences. They had been subtly preparing me for separation all along. "Do you know what the worst part is?" I said to the driver's reflection. "What's that?" "They assumed I would just accept it, lie down and give up." "You going to show them they're wrong?" I watched the I-90 floating bridge come into view, its structure creating geometric shapes against the sky. I'm 68 years old. I worked for 43 years as an architect. I raised a son who seems to think I'm some kind of idiot. But I didn't get this far by letting people walk all over me. The driver chuckled. "Now you're making sense." My phone buzzed. Another message, this time from Clara. "So sorry about the ticket mix-up, Dad Miller. We'll bring you back something nice from the Caribbean." Mix-up? As if it were a simple administrative error instead of a calculated betrayal. I thought about the $25,000 I'd sent to David's account 6 weeks ago for the trip. He'd said it was easier to book it all from one place. How easily I had believed him, how thoroughly I had been deceived. But as we got onto I-5, heading toward my empty house in the hills, something inside me changed. The pain was still there, acute and raw. But beneath it was something harder, something that had been building pressure like a tectonic plate. They wanted to treat me like a senile old man who could be cast off when it was convenient. They wanted my money while excluding me from my own grandchildren's vacation. Fine. But they were about to learn that this old man still had a few tricks up his sleeve. The taxi pulled into my driveway as the sun began to set behind Portland's West Hills. The house was just as I'd left it 3 hours ago, tidy, silent, prepared for a week-long absence. But I was not the same man who had locked that door with such excitement. "That'll be $55.50, the driver said. I gave him $70. "Keep the change, and I appreciate the conversation." "Whatever you've got planned," he said with a grin. "I hope they get what's coming to them." As his car disappeared down the street, I took out my phone and found a number I hadn't used in months. Victor Crane, my lawyer. If David wanted to play games with $25,000, we could play games. But I had some research to do first. The key turned in the lock with its familiar sound. But the feeling was entirely different. I pulled my suitcase inside, its wheels getting stuck on the doormat I'd bought with Eleanor 20 years ago. Home, where I'd expected to be packing for the Caribbean tonight, not unpacking from a trip to nowhere. I changed into a comfortable sweater and old trousers, the kind David always said made me look like a retired academic. Tonight it felt right. I had some studying to do. My office was exactly as I had left it this morning. Eleanor's cherry wood desk was by the window, with filing cabinets standing neatly against the wall. Everything was in order, everything in its proper place, unlike my family. The vacation folder was in the second drawer, labeled Caribbean 2025 in my precise script. I took it out and laid the documents across the desk's surface. 23 pages, each one a testament to my trust that had been systematically violated. Travel agency receipt, $25,000 transferred to David's account 6 weeks prior. Resort confirmation, the Royal Atlantis, Ocean View Suites, 7 guests, 10 nights. I read the names. David, Clara, Helen, George, Lily, Jake, and Eleanor Miller. Eleanor, my wife, who had passed away 3 years ago. They had actually used Eleanor's name instead of mine. The reservation my money had paid for didn't even have my name on it. My hand trembled as I picked up the resort brochure. Stunning sunset images, families splashing in turquoise water, generations sharing meals at outdoor tables. Everything we'd discussed in those planning meetings. "Dad, you'll love the ocean view," David had said. "The kids will make such incredible memories," Clara had chimed in. All of it was a lie. I picked up the phone, not my mobile, but the old landline Eleanor had insisted on keeping. This moment needed the gravity of a physical connection, not wireless convenience. Directory assistance gave me the number for the Royal Atlantis Resort. "Reservations, this is Keisha. How can I assist you?" Her voice had that practiced island warmth, the kind hospitality staff are trained to perfect. "I need to cancel a booking under the name Miller." "Let me look that up for you, Miller. Yes, I have a reservation for 7 guests. Arriving tomorrow? Ocean View Suites for 10 nights. Are you sure you wish to cancel? Our resort is stunning this time of year." "I'm absolutely certain." "May I ask the reason?" "Perhaps I can find you alternatives. Different accommodations, shorter stays, no alternatives." "Cancel the entire booking." A brief silence. I could hear her typing, likely trying to understand why someone would cancel such a valuable reservation. "Mr. Miller, I must inform you that canceling this close to the check-in date will incur substantial fees. The total cancellation penalty will be $3,500. $3,500, less than my yearly property taxes. That is acceptable." "Are you positive, sir?" "This is a very significant booking." "Maybe if you spoke to our guest relations manager." "Cancel it now, please." More typing. The hum of a printer. Official business was being conducted. "The cancellation has been processed. You will receive an email confirmation within the hour." "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "Actually, yes. When a party arrives tomorrow expecting that booking, what will you tell them?" "I would let them know that the reservation was canceled by the primary booking contact at 6:47 p.m. Pacific Time on June 15th. Perfect. David would know the exact moment I took action, and more importantly, he would know it was intentional. "Thank you, Keisha. You have been very helpful." I hung up the phone and looked at the papers on my desk. In the corner was a framed photo from last Christmas. David, Clara, the kids, Helen, and George, all gathered by my tree, opening gifts I'd purchased, eating food I'd paid to have catered, all of them smiling at the generous old fool. Well, the generous part was finished. Morning sun streamed through my bedroom windows differently than it had in weeks. For the first time since we started planning this trip, I had slept soundly, without dreams, without interruption. No worries about what to pack. No excitement about seeing Helen's reaction to the ocean. No mental checklists of things the grandkids would enjoy. Just quiet. I showered, got dressed, and went to the kitchen. The old coffee maker gurgled on the counter, filling the house with the same rich aroma that had greeted Eleanor and me for 43 years. My cell phone was charging where I'd left it. The screen displayed missed calls, but I ignored it while I poured my coffee. Some discussions required careful preparation. Finally, I looked at the phone. 56 missed calls, all from the same Caribbean number. The call history told the story more effectively than any book. 11:47 p.m. Caribbean time, then 11:52, then 12:03 a.m., every 15 minutes all night, 4:30 a.m., 5:15, 6:00. David had been up all night. Between the calls were text messages. I scrolled through them, watching his panic grow in real time. "Dad, call me. It's an emergency. The resort says you canceled everything. Dad, this is not a joke. Call me right now. The kids are in tears. We don't have a place to stay. Call me back." The timestamps created a clear narrative. The family had reached the Royal Atlantis around 3 p.m. Caribbean time yesterday, 6 p.m. Portland time, right as I was ending my call with Keisha. They had approached that beautiful front desk, excited and weary from travel, likely already thinking about their first sunset dinner, only to find out they had no rooms. I took my coffee to the living room and sat in my favorite armchair. Outside, my neighbor was walking his beagle, the same route they'd taken every morning for a decade. A normal Tuesday for everyone else. My phone buzzed with another call. Caribbean number. I let it go to voicemail. The notification popped up a moment later. I listened. Dad, I have no idea what you think you're doing, but you need to fix this immediately. We spent the night in the resort lobby. Helen has been crying non-stop. The kids have no idea what's going on. This is cruel and vindictive and totally out of character for you. Call me back and sort out this mess. Cruel and vindictive. An interesting way to phrase it, coming from someone who had left his own father stranded at an airport. The coffee was excellent. A dark roast I'd ground yesterday morning when I still believed in family trips and children's laughter and 3 generations making memories. I set my cup down and picked up my phone, scrolling to David's Caribbean number. My thumb hovered over the call icon. 6 weeks of deception. $25,000 sent without a second thought. 3 months of cheerful conversations about snorkeling and luau's and teaching Lily how to swim. All of it a carefully constructed lie to exclude me. David wanted to talk now. After 56 unanswered calls and a voicemail that blamed everyone but himself. Perfect. I had a few things to say as well. I pressed the button. David picked up before the first ring was complete. Dad, finally. What in the world is going on? The resort says you canceled our entire booking. His voice was so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. In the background I could hear other voices. Clara saying something about a complete nightmare. One of the kids crying. Well, hello David, how's the vacation? Don't mess with me. We don't have a place to stay. Do you realize what you've done? I reached for my notepad, the one Eleanor used to keep by the phone. Some conversations needed to be recorded. In fact, I realize it perfectly. Tell me, when you decided to leave me at the airport yesterday, where exactly did you expect me to be spending my vacation? A silence. The background chatter stopped. Dad, that was totally different. This is about innocent children. Were there innocent children involved when you deliberately cut me out after taking my $25,000? That's not the same. I noted the time. 8:03 a.m. Portland, 5:03 a.m. Caribbean. David's voice sounded strained, like someone who'd been up all night in a crisis. Help me understand how it's different, son. The difference is we're stranded in a foreign country with no money, and kids who are confused about why their trip is ruined. Interesting. Yesterday, you told me to just go home when I was stranded in a foreign airport. What's different? Clara's voice got louder in the background. David, tell him about the credit cards. Credit cards? I wrote it down. Dad, we can't afford another resort. Everything is booked solid because of some conference. We put the whole trip on credit, assuming we'd pay it off with, well, assuming different things. You mean assuming you'd pay it off with my money while I sat at home like a piece of old furniture? Stop being so dramatic. This isn't about you now. It's about Helen and the kids, and it became about me the second you took my money and left me out of my own grandchildren's vacation. David's tone changed, hardening. Fine. You want to be difficult? When I get back to Portland, you will regret this. You think you can control this family with your money? I wrote that down verbatim. You will regret this. David, are you threatening me? I'm telling you that actions have consequences, old man. Old man, I noted that too. You are absolutely correct about consequences. For instance, the consequence of breaking someone's trust is that they stop trusting you. This is absurd. You're hurting children because you got your feelings hurt. I'm teaching adults that stealing $25,000 and abandoning family has repercussions. We didn't steal anything. You gave us that money for a family trip, which, by definition, includes family. Silence except for Helen's voice in the distance. Something about never should have listened, and this is a total disaster. David tried a new tactic. Dad, listen, maybe we made a mistake yesterday, but right now we have to focus on solving this. Can you call the resort? And no. What do you mean, no? I mean the word no, David. It's what you should have heard yesterday when you told me to just go home and miss my grandchildren's trip. This is crazy. You're acting like some kind of monster. I hung up. The living room was perfectly still after David's yelling. Outside, a hummingbird flitted near Eleanor's old feeder, its wings a blur of green in the morning sun. I looked at my notes. Threats, insults, financial admissions, zero remorse. My phone immediately began to ring again. Caribbean number. I powered it off and finished my coffee, watching the hummingbird move between blossoms with purpose and skill. Some lessons could not be taught with words. I looked at my notepad where David's threats were written in stark black ink. "You will regret this, old man." The words seemed even more sinister on paper than they had sounded over the phone. Eleanor's reading chair was empty by the window, afternoon sun streaming across the floral fabric she'd picked out 30 years ago. I could almost imagine her sitting there, hands folded, waiting for me to ask the right question. "What would you do, Eleanor?" But I knew. Eleanor never allowed anyone to intimidate her, not even if it cost her friendships or family harmony. She had built a career as a nurse by standing up to doctors who thought women should be in the background. "Sometimes kindness is seen as weakness," she often said. "Don't let people make that mistake about you, Arthur." I had been kind to David his entire life, paid for his college when his grades were poor, co-signed his first apartment lease, covered his mortgage payments during 3 different career changes, funded family trips, school supplies for the grandkids, medical expenses when Clara needed surgery, kindness, all of it taken for weakness. My office now felt like a command center where critical decisions were made. I opened the filing cabinet Eleanor had organized with such care. Every folder was labeled in her neat handwriting. Financial family support held the proof of 20 years of generosity. Bank records showing monthly payments to David's mortgage. Receipts for Lily's piano lessons and Jake's sports gear. Medical bills I'd discreetly paid when Helen needed her knee replaced. College fund deposits, birthday checks, Christmas gifts framed as loans that were never meant to be repaid. $52,000 last year alone. I found Victor Crane's business card behind Eleanor's emergency contacts. Crane and Associates, estate planning, and family law. We had worked with him when Eleanor passed, managing her affairs with a professional efficiency that made a hard time easier. Victor understood the complexities of family duties. He would also understand when those duties became exploitation. My investment records were in the bottom drawer. Statements showing the careful growth of 43 years in architecture. Property appreciation, retirement funds, savings bonds, stock options from firms I'd consulted for after retiring. David had no idea what he was about to lose. The afternoon sun was lower now, creating long shadows across my desk. Somewhere in the Caribbean, my son was likely still scrambling for accommodations, still believing this was a temporary spat he could resolve with the right mix of guilt and bullying. He was about to learn the difference between temporary and permanent. I reached for the phone, Victor's card in my other hand. The numbers felt important as I dialed, like coordinates for a place I had been avoiding for years. Justice was not the same as revenge. Eleanor taught me that too. Revenge was emotional, chaotic, and ultimately empty. Justice was clean, measured, and educational. David wanted to play hardball. Excellent. I had spent 4 decades in corporate negotiations with men who thought architects were soft. None of them made that mistake a second time. The phone rang. Victor's receptionist answered with professional courtesy. Crane and Associates. "How may I direct your call?" "Victor Crane's office. This is Jennifer." "This is Arthur Miller. I need to book an urgent meeting with Victor regarding estate planning." The appointment was for tomorrow afternoon. I slept better that night than I had since this whole thing began, waking up clear-headed and refreshed for the drive to Seattle. Victor's office was on the 15th floor of a glass skyscraper overlooking the Sound, all polished stone and dark wood, the kind of place that billed by the hour and produced results that were worth it. "Arthur, come in." Victor stood to welcome me, his handshake firm. At 55, he had the quiet confidence of someone who had spent his career untangling other people's problems. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk and laid out my documents like evidence. Bank statements, receipts, the threatening texts, and my notes from yesterday's call. "What's going on?" Victor asked, taking out a legal pad. "My son has revealed his true nature. I need legal protection from his greed." The story unfolded logically from the start. The planned family trip, David's cold exclusion at the airport, the resort cancellation, the 56 frantic calls, and finally the ugly threats when he realized he couldn't manipulate me. Victor took notes, asking sharp questions that showed his expertise in family law. "How long has this financial support been happening?" 20 years at least. I have records going back to his first house, and the threats were explicit. I wrote them down exactly. I slid my notepad to him. "You will regret this, old man. Actions have consequences. Victor read the notes, his face growing more serious. "Arthur, this appears to be attempted financial coercion. In Washington, that's a solid basis for disinheritance, with legal protections against challenges. Meaning if you decide to change your will, we can write it to be invulnerable to any legal challenge from David." The relief was palpable, like dropping a heavy burden I hadn't realized I was carrying. "I want him completely removed," I said. "Everything I have built should go to organizations that will do some good with it." Victor opened his computer and brought up estate planning software. "Let me show you the options. We can create a new will with charitable beneficiaries and include specific language explaining why David is being excluded." For the next hour, we went over the specifics. The Portland Children's Education Foundation would get the largest share of my estate. Architecture scholarships at the University of Washington would receive a large endowment. Local senior programs, community arts funds, veteran support, causes that mattered, managed by people who understood responsibility. "The evidence you've brought shows a clear history of financial exploitation," Victor said, looking over my statements. "Paired with the threatening texts, we have a very strong case for disinheritance. How long will this take?" "I can have the papers drafted for your signature next week. We'll need witnesses, a notary, and I would advise a video recording of the signing to confirm your mental state. Whatever is necessary." Victor leaned back, studying me to ensure I understood the gravity of the situation. "Arthur, this is a final decision. Once this is signed, it will irrevocably alter your family dynamics." "They were altered first," I said. "I'm simply making it official." "And you're sure about this? No reservations about the grandchildren?" I thought of Lily and Jake, their innocent faces at family dinners I had paid for, birthday parties I had made happen. "The children will be better off with scholarship programs than with money their father would mismanage." Victor nodded, seemingly convinced by my logic. "Then we'll move forward. I'll prepare a comprehensive will that excludes David entirely and protects your final wishes from any legal attack." We shook hands as the meeting ended, his grip conveying both professional skill and personal empathy. "I will call you when everything is ready." Walking back through the marble lobby, I felt lighter than I had in years. The law was on my side. Justice was coming. And David would finally learn that actions do indeed have consequences. The elevator descended 15 floors while I reflected on what had just occurred in Victor's office. Legal protection was on its way. Real, lasting consequences for David's betrayal. That week went by peacefully, filled with the simple routines I had set aside during months of vacation planning. Morning walks, afternoon reading, and quiet evening meals. No more constantly checking my phone for updates from David. No more worrying if Helen would like the restaurants I'd chosen or if George needed different activities. Just calm, ordered days while Victor drafted the legal documents that would finalize everything. Friday afternoon, my phone rang. Victor's office. "Arthur, the documents are prepared. Can you come in on Monday to sign?" "Absolutely." "Just to be sure, you are still resolved to make these changes." "More than ever." Monday morning, I was back in Victor's downtown office, but this time, the conference room included his secretary, Mrs. Chen, and a paralegal named David, seated at the table with notary seals and official papers. "This is a formal will execution," Victor explained. "Everything must be witnessed and notarized to guard against future challenges." The new will was open before me. 23 pages of legal text that converted my pain into permanent action. Page after page specified the exclusion of David Miller from any inheritance, the creation of charitable trusts, and the appointment of Victor as executor. "Let me read the critical sections aloud," Victor said, his voice imbued with legal solemnity. "The testator, Arthur Miller, being of sound mind and clear judgment, hereby excludes his son, David Miller, from all inheritance due to a demonstrated pattern of financial exploitation and threatening behavior." The words felt definitive, final. Furthermore, the testator names the following charitable organizations as primary beneficiaries. Victor continued down the list we had carefully chosen. The Portland Children's Education Foundation would receive $400,000. The University of Washington's Architecture Scholarship Fund would get $300,000. Senior programs, Veterans Aid, Community Arts, worthy causes run by appreciative people, instead of entitled relatives. Mrs. Chen spoke up. "Mr. Miller, do you fully understand these terms?" "Yes, and you are signing this will of your own free will?" "Completely." The paralegal activated a video camera on a tripod. "For the record, please state your name and the date." "Arthur Miller, June 15th, 2025. And you are signing this will of your own volition." "I am." My signature was steady on the documents, each stroke deliberate. Mrs. Chen and the paralegal signed as witnesses. The notary seal made a crisp impression on the paper, making it all official under Washington state law. "The original will be kept in our secure vault," Victor said, giving me sealed copies. "These are for your records. I suggest keeping one at home and another in a safe deposit box." "When do you think they'll find out?" "That's up to you to decide." I tucked the envelope under my arm, its weight feeling like a shield against future manipulation. "Their flight gets in Thursday afternoon. They'll probably want some kind of family discussion about what happened." Victor nodded. Family meetings after a crisis often reveal everyone's real character. Outside his building, Seattle was alive with its usual energy. Normal life went on while my personal world had been fundamentally reshaped. The drive home over the I-90 floating bridge offered Eleanor's favorite view of the city. She would have approved of today's work, clean, legal, and just. David had made his choice at the airport when he decided I was expendable. Now he would face the consequences. 2 weeks had passed since Victor secured the final documents. During that time, I maintained my quiet routine while mentally preparing for this moment. Victor and I had confirmed the flight information, planned the timing, and gotten ready for what was about to happen. Now standing next to him in the International Arrivals Hall at SeaTac, I felt the same calm focus that had guided me through every major project of my architecture career. "Flight 815 from Nassau has arrived," Victor said quietly, checking his phone. "They should be through customs soon." The leather briefcase he carried held the documents that would complete our objective. 3 weeks of planning, legal work, and mental preparation all came down to this. Passengers started to appear through the sliding doors, tanned families wearing souvenir hats, couples with duty-free bags, business people checking their phones. Then I saw them. Helen came first, talking animatedly to George about the flight. She carried a shopping bag with Nassau printed on it. George followed, pulling 2 large suitcases, his face showing the weary patience of someone who'd been listening to travel stories for hours. Behind them were Clara and the kids. Lily wore a colorful dress over her jeans and held a small ukulele, while Jake had a necklace made of shells. Both children looked tired but happy, searching the crowd for familiar faces. David came out last, looking at his phone with the distracted expression of someone reconnecting with his normal life. His linen shirt was untucked, and he walked with the casual confidence of a man who thought his problems were over. Then Lily saw me. "Grandpa!" She broke free and ran to me, her ukulele bouncing. Jake was right behind her, his face beaming with genuine happiness. "Grandpa Arthur, we missed you. Wait till you hear about the stingrays." I knelt to hug them, feeling their small arms around my neck with the pure affection only grandchildren have. For a second, the gravity of what was about to unfold weighed on me. But then I looked up and saw David's face. He had frozen, his relaxed vacation mood vanishing as he registered the unexpected welcome. His gaze shifted from me to Victor, taking in my lawyer's suit and the briefcase under his arm. "Dad," David's voice was tired. "What are you doing here?" "Welcoming you back," I said, standing and gently guiding the children to my side. "How was the trip?" Clara was now at David's side, her expression changing from confusion to alarm as she noticed Victor. Helen, unaware of the tension, continued her story. "Arthur, what a lovely surprise. Wait until you hear about the snorkeling, and the resort had the most incredible—" "Helen," George said softly, his accountant's mind sensing the trouble she had missed. "Maybe we should," Victor stepped forward, his manner all business. "Mr. David Miller," his voice was formal and clear. David's face paled under his tan. Victor held out the sealed envelope to David with the formal bearing of a process server. "Mr. David Miller, this is a copy of your father's revised last will and testament, executed on June 15th, 2025. David's hands shook as he took the envelope. The airport sounds seemed to fade as everyone's attention fixed on the legal document. What is this?" Clara whispered, reading the law firm's return address. David broke the seal with agitated motions, his vacation calm completely gone. He unfolded the pages and started reading, his eyes flying across the text. I watched his expression change as he understood. First confusion, then disbelief, then a look of pure horror as he got to the sections on disinheritance. "This isn't real," he said, his voice barely audible. Clara read over his shoulder, her face losing all color as she grasped the implications. "Arthur," she said, trying to sound reasonable, "surely we can sort this out. Think of the children. They're your grandkids." "I did think of them," I answered calmly. "That's why I paid $25,000 for their Caribbean trip." David's head shot up, his eyes burning with the desperate anger of someone watching his life's plan disintegrate. "You can't do this." "I'm your son." "Yes," I said, "the son who left me stranded and threatened me when I finally pushed back." Helen, finally realizing something was terribly wrong, stopped talking. "Arthur, what is happening? Why is everyone so upset?" George took her arm. "Helen, maybe we should give them a moment." But David didn't want a moment. "This is impossible." "You can't just disinherit family. There are laws." Victor spoke with professional composure. "Actually, Mr. Miller, Washington state probate law fully supports your father's right to dispose of his assets as he wishes. The will is legally airtight. I'll fight it in court." David's voice rose, drawing looks from nearby travelers. "This won't hold up." "Please do," I said. "Victor has prepared for that. The video of my competency hearing should be very persuasive for any judge." Clara was still reading the documents, her practical mind adding up the losses. The house, the stocks, everything. "Everything," Victor confirmed. "The Portland Children's Education Foundation and the University of Washington Architecture Scholarship Fund are now the main beneficiaries." David crumpled the papers, then immediately tried to smooth them out. "This is insane. You're throwing away your family over one ridiculous argument." "One ridiculous argument?" My voice was steady, but I felt Eleanor's spirit behind me. "David, you took $25,000, cut me out of my own grandchildren's vacation, and threatened me. That's not an argument. That is betrayal." Lily tugged my sleeve. "Grandpa, why is Daddy yelling?" I looked down at her worried face and felt a real sadness. These children would grow up not understanding why their inheritance vanished, never knowing their father's greed had cost them everything. "Sometimes adults make mistakes with very big consequences," I told her softly. David's desperation intensified. "We'll get lawyers. We'll prove you were manipulated, that you're not in your right mind." Victor opened his briefcase and gave David a card. "I would be happy to provide proof of your father's full mental competency to any attorney you retain. Be warned, frivolous lawsuits can be very expensive." The family stood together by their vacation luggage, the happy memories already spoiled by this new reality. Helen looked between us, still not understanding the scale of what had occurred. George, however, understood perfectly. His financial background allowed him to see when the numbers spelled disaster. "David," he said quietly, "maybe you should have considered the consequences before you acted." David turned on his father-in-law. "Don't you lecture me. This impacts all of us." "No," I said firmly. "This impacts the people who broke my trust. Your children are innocent. That's why I've created scholarship funds that will help children just like them for many years to come." Victor closed his briefcase. "Gentlemen, our business here is done." He walked toward the exit, and I followed, leaving David's family to face their new reality in the middle of the terminal. Behind us, I could hear David's voice, still trying to argue, still refusing to accept that some consequences are irreversible. The walk through SeaTac felt different than it had 3 weeks ago. Then I had been a confused and betrayed old man. Now I walked beside my lawyer as a man who had reclaimed his dignity through decisive action. Bruce and I were quiet during the elevator ride to the parking garage. The weight of justice needed no words. "That went precisely as we planned," Victor finally said as we got to his car. "Better," I answered. David showed his true colors perfectly. No judge would challenge a will after hearing those threats. The drive home took us over the I-90 bridge as evening fell. The city lights sparkled on the water in a way Eleanor had always loved, and I felt her presence, approving of the day's events. "You know they'll try to fight it," Victor said, as we drove through Portland. Let them. Every lawyer they talk to will tell them the same thing you told me. The will is ironclad. Victor pulled into my driveway as the porch light came on. The house looked the same, but everything felt different now that justice had been done. We shook hands. Thank you, Victor. You made this happen. You did the hard part, Arthur. Standing up for yourself required true courage. After his car was gone, I unlocked my front door and stepped into the quiet refuge of my home. In the kitchen, I made a simple dinner: scrambled eggs, toast, and tea. No need to worry about anyone else's tastes. The evening light slanted through the dining room windows as I ate, illuminating the family photos on the mantel. I could look at them now without the sting of betrayal. My armchair was waiting for me by the living room window. I settled into it with my tea, looking out at the garden Eleanor had planted. The last few weeks had turned me from a victim into an advocate, from someone who accepted mistreatment to someone who demanded justice. Eleanor would have been proud. My phone was on the side table, turned off since I left the airport. No doubt David was trying to call, still thinking he could negotiate his way out of this. But some lessons can only be learned the hard way. The charitable organizations would get my call tomorrow. The Portland Children's Education Foundation, the University of Washington's Architecture School, the Senior Services Program. My money would fund piano lessons for children whose parents worked 2 jobs. It would pay for textbooks for students who couldn't afford them. It would provide meals for seniors forgotten by their families. Real good in the world instead of funding more vacations I'd be left out of. The sun set behind Portland's hills. Somewhere across town, David's family was likely still trying to grasp their new circumstances. Helen would be confused, George quietly doing the math, Clara planning damage control, and David would be learning that actions truly do have consequences. I finished my tea as darkness fell. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight I sat in my own chair, in my own house, filled with the quiet dignity of a man who had reclaimed his self-respect. Eleanor's wisdom had guided me through it all, to this moment of peaceful resolution. Justice served, lessons learned, future secured. It was enough. It was perfect. It was finally mine. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know what you thought in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for listening.